Good afternoon. My name is Dwayne Miller. I'm a minister, a worker with Anglican Frontier Missions. My wife and I have been with them for 14, 15 years now, most recently in Spain. That's after quite some years over in the Middle East, and then some time doing training and mobilization back here in the States. I want to share with you a little bit about the context of our ministry in Madrid, and then I'm going to tell you about one of the specific projects that we're working on there. So first of all, Spain. That's a country of about 46 to 47 million people. That's to give you an idea of the population of the country. Now, Madrid is both a city and a community. That's what we would call here a state, or in some other places they'd call it a province. So the city of Madrid itself has about 3.2 million people. It's a large city, the most populous one in Spain. And then the community, or the state, has about 6.5 million. So one of the most populous ones in the country. We live in a neighborhood called Ríos Rosas. It is just about 30, 40 minutes walking north of downtown. So it is still close to the city center, and that was intentional on our part. So when I was going there some years ago on an exploratory trip to figure out if this was really the right place for us to minister, I met another missionary or worker with the Assemblies of God. His name is Dan. And Dan also has a heart for Muslims, as do Sharon and I. So once we got there and we got settled in, Dan and I agreed to go on a prayer walk every week through this neighborhood that's close to where both of us live. And this neighborhood is called Tetuan. Tetuan is one of the most diverse neighborhoods in Madrid, and it has a significant Moroccan population, and that's the reason that we chose to do our prayer walks there. And one day, I said, Dan, wouldn't it be interesting, wouldn't it be great if we could start a prayer group or a prayer service once a week or once a month here in Tetuan? We'll do it all in Arabic and just see if anyone shows up. So it was just kind of a thought experiment. He said, well, I know a pastor who knows the pastor of one of these little storefront churches that's mostly just Latino, and I'll talk to him. I'm like, oh, okay. So it turns out that pastor is like, yes, that's great. I love the idea. You guys can have it one evening a week. So that door opened. And then I'm thinking about, well, we need funds for this because we have funds to pay for our family expenses. But to launch a church, I was thinking, well, we need some audio-video equipment. We need some musical equipment. We need a good, high-quality website. I don't want to just have a low-quality, WordPress blog or something like that. Something that is engaging, that has a lot of good content. And I'm thinking that, this all costs money. Well, I get an email from a church in the States that supported our work for years, and they said, we've had this piece of land that we've had for a long time, and we're selling it, and we'd like to give some of that to foreign missions. Do you have any grant proposals for a particular project, not to your family, but for a project? I'm like, yeah, actually, we're trying to do this thing, starting an Arabic language fellowship in Madrid. So I sent that in, and they approved that. So God had just opened that door. And again, I hadn't gone asking. It just opened. And then we start this. Sharon is doing the music in Arabic. I'm doing teaching and reflections. And then we meet a wonderful Egyptian pastor. And he is from the Free Methodist Church in the United States, of course, though from Egyptian origins. And he is a guy who is just a great teacher, very well educated, and we just totally mesh. So this is a God thing. Assemblies of God, Anglican, Free Methodist, right? And it's wonderful to see how this is coming together. I'm thinking we've got to have a good website, because if you work with Muslims at all, you know that they will not usually talk about their questions with people around them. They'll go to the internet where they can just be private and then delete the history, and their family won't know that they're trying to find a church or trying to get a Bible or whatever. So we have to have a good quality website. Well, a Christian photographer, a professional photographer says, I will walk around Tetuan with you for half a day and take photographs, good quality photographs. Normally this would cost hundreds of euros to hire someone to do. I'll do it for free. Amazing. So the website is up, and just to give you an idea of how important it is to have a good, high quality website, we've been going for 1 year. In October, the fellowship will turn 1 year old. And in 1 year, all through the website, we've had 3 people requesting baptism just through the website. So we're moving towards that. We're working with all of them, and we'll see where those go, because you have to take it slow with baptism. It's a serious thing with Muslims. And then finally, we got contacts from other people. Someone said, well, I've got this great ministry online, and I've got these people I'm in touch with, and I'm Anglican, and I want to connect them with an Anglican, but they don't have any, they live in countries where they don't have churches, or they're Arabs, and they don't have an Arabic church. Can you do something with them? So we start live casting our services via Facebook. So all of this working together, we have this wonderful synergy and this energy working together. And through Facebook and then putting videos on YouTube from our teaching, we've reached hundreds of people. It's a very small ministry. I don't think we've ever had more than 11 or 12 people there physically for our meeting. But on the other hand, given that we're only a year old and that this is such a novel type of ministry in Madrid, I feel like God is doing something really, really special. Well, I want to share with you now 5 key lessons that I have learned from this experience, because I would like for you to be able to go back to your cities and to your places where you're ministering, whether those are here in the United States or in other countries, and ask yourselves, do we have the resources, or really not even resources, is God calling us to do something like this where we are? Is God calling us to do something like this where we are? So the first thing is anticipate a lot of spiritual opposition. And that might sound like a no-brainer, right? We're like, well, we all know that there's spiritual opposition. Okay, there's spiritual opposition, and then there's spiritual opposition. The work that we do at the cathedral, I have not had anything like this. Teaching at the seminary, I have not had anything like this. Numerically, this is clearly the least impressive or the least substantial of all the ministries that we work with, yet there's no doubt that it is the main ministry that has been pressed back on by the powers of darkness. So just be ready. I don't know what it is about working with Muslims and reaching out to Muslims, sharing the gospel with them, catechizing them, baptizing them, forming them into leaders, which is a really long and strenuous process, by the way. But there's something about that mission and that ministry that Satan really, really does not like. And he's willing to invest a lot of his resources working against it. So that's the first point, is to anticipate a lot of spiritual resistance. The second thing that we learned, and this has been discouraging in many ways, is that we are dealing with a very transient population. A very transient population. We have noticed in Madrid, and this has been verified by people in other places, that the Muslims who are most open to listening to the gospel almost always tend to be the ones who are going through a period of transition. People who have recently immigrated from fill in the blank, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Morocco. The Muslim populations in Western cities that have been there for 1 or 2 generations, they're settled in, they have a sense of we know who we are, and they tend to be a lot less open to the gospel. So, because of that, you're dealing with people who are economic migrants, and they, guess what, will move wherever there is work. You're dealing with people who are going through the refugee and asylum system, and oftentimes the government or the refugee agency will say, we need to move you, and guess what? They have to move. So one example is this wonderful brother. He was an Egyptian, not a convert, but from a Christian family named Magdi. And he was a person of peace. He was like the Samaritan woman in John 4. Every Tuesday evening, he'd bring someone new, some miscellaneous guy that he had just met. Some of them were Muslims. Some of them were ex-Muslims who weren't sure if they believed anything. But he was just one of the main gifts and the main members that we had in our little fellowship. And guess what? The government says, you have been accepted for the whole refugee process. And guess what? You need to move to the city of Bilbao, all the way in the north of Spain, from one day to the next, we lost one of our main lay people. I'll give you another example. I got a message from a young Moroccan man named, I'm not going to say his name, and he said, I don't know very much about Christianity, but I don't want to be a Muslim anymore. Will you teach me and baptize me, please? So we this happens. So we get together, and I'm talking with him, trying to figure out where he is, what little he knows, what he doesn't know. And I say, okay, so we're just going to begin at the beginning of Mark. We're going to do a verse-by-verse study through Mark, and I want you to know how to study the Bible, basically, is what I'm working on. Well, we're doing this. I have to go on a brief pastoral assignment to another town for 2 weeks. I hand him off to another colleague. They're meeting together. I get back, and Hisham, I'm like, hey, okay, Hisham, let's get together. And he's like, oh, yeah, I got deported. I'm back in Morocco. Boom. Like that. Now, I worked, and I'm still trying to keep him involved in Kanisa. Kanisa is the name of the fellowship, the Arabic word for church. And we can do that because of Facebook, because of WhatsApp, because of YouTube. So there are ways to keep him involved. I've also gotten in touch with some workers in his country to try to arrange for them to discipleship him personally. So we do a lot of follow-up, even when people leave. However, here is this promising young man who was very energetic. We were working through Mark. He was really getting it. I was really encouraged. And then gone. So we're dealing with a transient population. It's rough. If you've worked with student ministry at a university, it's a little bit like that, but even more transient, actually. A third thing to keep in mind is you need to be careful with the word Arabic or the word Arab. You need to be careful with the word Arabic or Arab. Why is that? Because Arab can refer to several different things. Arab can refer to a language. It can refer to a culture. It can refer to an ethnic group. And here's the thing. A lot of ethnic groups speak Arabic, but they are not Arabs. I'll give you an example, since we're focusing on Moroccans, and so many of the Muslims that we work with are Moroccans. What is the name of the ethnic group that is indigenous to Morocco? The Berbers, right? Thank you. The Berbers. And they actually have their own word for it, but we'll just call them Berbers. That's the word that we know in English. And many of the Berbers are quite adamant that they are not Arabs. And if they see something that says the Arabic Church, what do you think their reaction will be? They'll be like, What if you have it in Arabic, but you say the Christian Church? That's the name of the fellowship in Arabic, by the way. Al-Kanisa al-Masihiyya fi Madrid. The Christian Church in Madrid. That's all. It's written in Arabic, but we don't say that it's an Arab church, and it's precisely for that. And we learned that from the error of another church in southern Spain. There's only 3 Arabic language fellowships in all of Spain, and we're one of them. Although I think there's a 4th one in formation, which is fantastic. Dan asked, well, should we call ourselves the Arabic or the Christian Church in Madrid? Like, what if someone starts another one? I would say, praise God, but let's cross that bridge when we get there, okay? So that's the third point. You've got to be careful with the word Arabic. You can say we are Arabic speaking, we worship in Arabic, but there are many ethnic groups throughout the Middle East that are not Arabs. The Berbers are one of them, Copts, Armenians, and several other ones. A fourth point. Sometimes other churches just won't get what you're talking about. Even churches that are evangelical, that want to preach the gospel, that are missions-minded, you talk about this sort of project, and they'll look at you like you're visiting from Neptune. So just be aware that some churches and some leaders who love the Lord will just not get the project at all. So you can't just assume that everyone's going to support it. And the second one, and this is my final point since I got 30 seconds, is that, and this is here especially in the United States and in the developed world, some pastors and some leaders are aware that having an outreach to Muslims is kind of like the cherry on top of the sundae. It's a very attractive thing. It's a very cutting-edge ministry, right? So if you're going to have a ministry like this, a fellowship or even a Bible study that is focused on reaching out to Muslims or Muslim background Christians, you need to very clearly outline and define the relationship between this ministry and the local church. Because guess what? Maybe sometime you'll need to move to a different place. Maybe you'll find that all the people who want to attend live in a whole different part of town. You need to have that flexibility, so it's important to clearly define right from the beginning what is the relation between this ministry and the local church. Okay? So anyway, those are the 5 points that I wanted to share with you, in addition to our experience of what we did and what it was like for us to start this fellowship, Al-Kanisa Al-Masihiyya fi Madrid. And you're welcome to join our Facebook page, and if you want to listen to all the sermons and singing in Arabic, we would love that. Thank you.